Hello and welcome back to Yin Yoga. Today we are going to go through a couple of deeper hip flexor release poses like dragon poses, supine swan, some child's poses, and some tipped over supine swan poses. So we want to just really get in towards the hip flexors, release the lower back, and really release and open up the pathways from the feet up to the upper body and beyond. So we feel connected as we are walking about in our daily life and walking, hiking, biking, standing, sitting, whatever it is that we're doing, riding horses, gardening. There is so many options out there. So thanks for joining me. I think this will be great for hip flexor release session. So come on and take a comfortable seat. Make yourself comfortable with sweaters or socks. Take maybe some beautiful music that you like to listen to, and make yourself just at home on your mat. We'll start by taking a comfortable seat, and we'll start on the top and do our neck stretch just by sitting nice and tall, maybe on a blanket or on a pillow, and you have your props next to you if you needed to. We're going to start by taking the head to one side and opening up towards the neck and the throat and the breath so that we can breathe with ease throughout our poses. We're just softening all the layers. I like to hold the Yin Yoga poses for about 20 breaths. It's about 3 minutes or so. After 90 seconds, it becomes a Yin Yoga pose where the stretch reaches in to the layers between the muscles and goes into the fascia connective tissue and kind of leaves the muscles on its own so that we get to release into the deeper layers. And that would be the whole reason why we are here doing Yin Yoga today. Taking it into the deeper layers. We'll stay here for another 5 breaths. Just sitting nice and tall. Dropping the head to one side at a comfortable level of stretch for us. And then gently take your left hand on the side and tilt your head up to the center and make your way over to your second side. Dropping your ear over towards the shoulder for a neck shoulder stretch. And we'll stay here for about another 15 breaths or so. Softening the layers and doing our best to just target the side of the neck that we are stretching into. Sitting nice and tall on the sit bones. Relaxing our toes, relaxing the ankles, the knees. Fingers are relaxed. Staying for another 5 breaths or so. And gently taking your hand to the side of your head by the temples and helping the head back up so we're not pulling on the neck muscles or the deeper layers to come to upright. From here, we're going to start with a baby cobra. So we're going to come onto our forearms. You might lay on a blanket to make it more cozy. I'm going to come down onto the forearms, Sphinx pose, and dropping the pubic bone down, hip bones down. You can widen the legs slightly, come onto the forearms. You can put a block for your forehead, or you can just simply drop your head down, letting the back of the neck release, letting there be a nice gentle full stretch on the whole backside, and really starting to open up in towards the hip flexors, giving them just a little, like a little hello, like a little warm up for what we're about to get into, a little deeper into the layers. Relaxing the toes, relaxing the muscles of the legs. That would be my dog going to sleep. Just holding it in a nice, comfortable position where the pathways through the hips, through the deeper layer of the hips starts to open up. I'll stay here for another 5 breaths or so. And slowly releasing the arms out to the side, coming all the way down. Support yourself with your hands, tuck the toes under, and make your way into child's pose. Big toes together, knees apart. You might put soft blankets underneath your ankles. You might hug a pillow. Take the hands and just make like a little diamond shape and elbows out to the side. Forehead to a blanket or down towards the mat. Plugging the femurs in, rounding the spine, and just letting gravity help us go in towards the hip flexors, in towards the lower back area. And we have about 20 breaths here, so I'll see you in a little while. Focusing on our breaths, propping ourselves up if we needed to. Maybe we needed to lay on our backs and pull the knees in instead of facing down. So pick one version that works for you. Stay for about another 5 breaths here. And slowly making your way up from here, coming up onto all fours, and either stretching your legs back one at a time to get some blood flow through the knees and ankles, or taking a downward facing dog with me, whatever works for you. Just walking about in your dog a little bit, moving it side to side, or however you like to move it, maybe a little shoulder flossing. And then from here, we're going to come back down onto the knees and step the right foot outside the right hand. Come into dragon pose. You might bring in a pillow or a yoga block and come into a comfortable position that works for you, finding your edge for hip flexor release into your left side. Right foot is forward, foot is slightly turned out, and you might have blankets underneath your knee on your left side. You might stay here with your hands on a block. You might have your hands on the floor. It can get kind of intense. So make sure that you stay within your comfort zone, within your edge. So we don't go beyond that and keep it into a nice, yummy yin yoga pose. I'm going to come to my forearms and support myself right here. And then I can kind of push away a little bit so that I'm not passing the comfort zone on my left hip flexor. So you might feel this inner thigh area, into the deeper belly, into the lower back, and towards the lumbar spine where the hip flexor attaches. And we have about another 15 breaths here. We'll stay as relaxed as we can, passive stretching into the deeper layers, the fascia, connective tissue, all the little sheets that surrounds the muscles. We just help to restructure and release any unwanted tension that does not serve us. Taking some nice, good deep breaths. Enjoying new pathways opening up. Checking and see where all the different feelings are going, where the different stretch is targeting different places, and directing the breath into those places. We need a little bit more oxygen, a little bit more freedom into our muscles and fascia and connective tissues. Stay here for another 5 breaths or so, surrendering, passively stretching into the left hip flexor and certainly the right adductors and hamstring group area as well. And gently from here, hands supporting you on the floor or on your block, and just do a counter stretch with your right leg stretched out in front for a moment, moving about. We're going to switch to the second side. And focus on those hip flexors. So let's switch to the second side. Come to tabletop and step your left foot outside of your left hand, and either hands on the floor, hands on the block, finding your comfort zone wherever it is for your right hip flexor. Maybe a blanket underneath your knee if you needed to, if the mat or the floor feels hard. Turn your left foot out slightly, make yourself comfortable, find a good spot where you are right at your edge. It should only be like a 3 on a scale up to 10. So we'll stay in a nice comfortable place for a hip flexor release on the right side. Have about another 10 breaths or so here. Enjoying a nice opening on the right quad, hip flexor, front side of the thigh area. Maybe your left hamstrings, your left adductors are feeling some feels too, which was awesome. Just open that hip flexor on both sides from all angles. Three more breaths. And gently putting your hands down for support and counter stretch into a reverse dragon for just 3 breaths. Just a nice little counter stretch for the hips, for the hamstrings, for the spine. And then from here, we're going to come all the way down onto our backs. And please do take a down dog if you wanted to in between, and check in with your hips, or just simply come onto your back. Maybe bringing a pillow. I'm going to use a blanket for the head to have a little elevation and support for my neck. So here we are on our backs, supine swan pose. Take your right ankle over your left knee and either stay here if this is perfect for you. Maybe you have a block for your foot or a step stool or putting on a chair. The next step would be to take your hands around your hamstrings and just let the hands and the leg hang out together, or maybe taking your hands underneath the knees if you feel up for that and it's a good idea. And then from here, we're just going to relax and release. Breathing, staying for 20 breaths. Targeting the rotators on the right side, preparing for a different kind of twist. enjoying laying on our backs, untying knots in the right hip. Five more breaths here. And slowly releasing your left foot down. We're going to keep the same shape. So we're going to take the left foot and hike it over to the right side of the yoga mat so you can feel with your big toe that you're on the edge of the mat with your left side. And then the right foot is going to tip and go all the way down towards the floor. You might put a block for support. So we are in the same shape we were just in. We have just kind of tipped it over. So it's like a fallen swan pose. And then from here we can take the hands over the head or just hang out right here. This is a really excellent way of turning and twisting and releasing in towards that right hip flexor area. You might take your hand and feel it a little bit, or you might just enjoy staying right here. Breathing, softening. Relaxing as best as it goes, whatever is your circumstance at home. But really maybe having some great feelings in towards the right, deeper layers of your hip. And feeling the sacrum descending maybe a little bit more evenly towards the floor. And we'll stay here for another 10 breaths or so. Kind of reconstruction, the fascia around the right hip flexor and getting some nice release in towards the lower back, in towards the sacral region. You might feel this on the right inner thigh, you might feel it through the hip socket, you might feel it all the way in towards the lower back on the right side. Fully twisting and turning the right hip flexor, bringing some good health and vitality into all the layers that supports the hip flexor group, iliopsoas. We'll take another 5 breaths here. And gently start to undo your legs. And put your feet flat onto the floor, release the arms. Maybe adjust, maybe do a couple of windshield wipers with your hips. Not so much with the knees, but just with the hips coming up and down towards the shoulders, down towards the heels. And then we're going to move along to the second side, but please do move your hips the way you need to before you come to the second side. So let's take the left ankle over the right knee for a supine swan pose, and either here or a block for your right foot, or the leg on a chair, or hands around your right hamstrings, and maybe hands below the knees, below that right knee, one knee. And we'll stay right here where it feels like a good place, where we are within our comfort zone, where we feel like we are in a perfect place, where we can stay for another 3 minutes or so. Focusing on our breath, focusing on just relaxing, reconstruction in towards the deeper layers of the hip flexors. This one is mainly to kind of prepare the hip flexor for a twist and a turn by opening up the layers on the lateral side of the left hip. Rotators, IT band area. And certainly plugging in and giving the hip flexor group a nice massage as well. And we stay here for another 10 breaths, enjoying. Three more breaths here. And then slowly releasing the hands, lowering your right foot down and taking the right foot over to the left side of your yoga mat so you can feel the mat edge with your toes or your foot. And then we're going to tip our left foot down towards the mat edge and maybe have to adjust a little bit so it feels comfortable. So the sacrum is down as much as we can, and the left ankle is just right over the right knee. And then here we are enjoying a nice twist and turn in towards the left hip flexor area, in towards the very much deeper layers, in towards the iliopsoas. You might start to feel this into the inner thigh of your left leg, through the hips, and up in towards the lumbar lower back area. You can take your arms to the side or up over your head, and we have about another 15 breaths or so right here, where we just do our best to find our edge, hang out, release, relax, and let the shape of the body go and find its places where it needs to go, and release any tension, any toxins, any holds, any stagnation. And we'll just breathe into it and exhale out anything that we need to exhale out. Relaxing into the layers. 5 more breaths here. And slowly releasing the hands, undoing your legs, and come back with your feet flat, and maybe roll through your spine a little bit. Do your hip windshield wiper with your top of the hips just coming up towards the shoulder and then down towards the heel. And from here we're going to take the pillow away if you had one. If you love your pillow, by all means keep it there. But if you had something bigger, you might need to just reverse it to something smaller. We're going to take a block or something similar, a book, thick book, a couple of books, and put underneath the sacrum. And either this is where we're going to end up, or we might stretch the legs all the way out and just let that hip flexor fully stretch out, release fascia, connective tissue, tendons, and just give it a nice big full release, elevation. And if it's too much to lay on the block, then just lay flat and stretch your legs out like a Shavasana style. Maybe there is a soft blanket underneath instead of a harder block. So take what works for you for bridge pose. Fully opening up towards the front of the hips. And we have about another 15 breaths or so here, where we could just get to breathe, relax, find a good place to be, enjoying being still, enjoying stretching and bringing health in towards the deeper layers of the hips, in towards the lower back, and finding connection for the upper and lower body to communicate. Ten more breaths right here. Breathing through any tension, breathing through any discomfort, maybe bending the knees if we needed to. Three more breaths here. And slowly making your way off of the block by bending your knees in, putting your feet flat, and lifting off the block, putting it to the side or your blanket, whichever it was that you were having. And then from here, feet flat, give yourself a little arch into the mat and extending, and little arch and extending, and then take the feet as wide as your mat for a moving windshield wiper with the knees side to side. Neutralizing the hips, hip flexor, lower back, rotators. And we'll do one more on each side. And then slowly bringing your knees up to the center and one leg in at a time for knees to chest, upward facing child's pose, hugging it in, kind of flattening out your sacrum, elongating the lower back just for a few moments before we move our way into happy baby pose, a little deeper version for the hip flexors. This might feel really good. Maybe you want to stay here. Maybe you take your hands on the outside of the feet and kind of even out the hips by plugging the femurs in and giving your hip flexors one more nice deep turn and churn. And maybe it feels nice and even to lay here. Maybe the feet feels like they are on a nice even shelf above. Heavy arms, heavy legs. Softening the breath, letting it come and go to all parts. That is asking for a little extra oxygen to release pressure, release any knots, any buildups. Releasing arms, shoulders, neck, and jaw. Ten more breaths right here. And gently coming back with our legs towards the center and coming back to our upward facing child's pose for one breath or so. And then from here we're going to extend it out to Shavasana. You might lift your sacrum a little bit, your tush, and just kind of shake it out, and then put yourself back down into our resting pose where all the poses gets to combine into one nice big wholesome feeling for the whole body. Open pathways. There should be a nice transfer of energy through the hips, through the lower back, through the side of the hips, upper lower body. Should have a nice communication with each other. All meridians open. Relaxing the toes and ankles. Relaxing the knees, relaxing the quads. The muscles can just drop off of the bones. Heavy hips. It should be a nice open feeling right in the front of the hips. Belly and chest will move with the breath. There's a nice smile from shoulder to shoulder. Reaches out the arms, palms facing up, fingers are curled. Throat is free and clear. Breath flows easily. Jaw is relaxed. Eyelids are relaxed. Third eye is cleaning and clearing. Gently start to move your toes and your fingers. Stretching your arms over your head. Stretching the right side, the left side. Bending your knees and making your way to the side. And coming up into a comfortable seat when you feel ready. Either sitting on your blanket or your block, or crossing your legs, or sitting on your knees. Palms can face down onto the knees. Sitting nice and tall on your sit bones. It should feel easy to sit. A little bit more freedom than before practice through the whole body. Keeping the nice feeling through all the layers of our body until we practice yoga together again. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video. And I hope you have a fabulous rest of your day. Let's join our voices in one Om, and also to really just wrap our practice into the sacred sound of Om. Let's take a nice big inhale. Thank you so much, and I'll see you soon. Namaste.